Dave Wilcox.
Now, Dave, you were one of Gamesley's councillors for many years. How did you first come to get involved with Gamesley?
I was involved before I was a councillor. I was doing an adult education programme in Hattersley, and in order to pilot through the work we were doing, we suggested we might go and have a look at Gamesley as well, because there was similarity between Hattersley and Gamesley in terms of the people who were being, the people who were being attracted to move out into the countryside, and so it was around 1973, 74 that I first got involved in Gamesley. I love the place, I love the people.
And you went on to serve as, well, if I remember correctly, you started off as one of our councillors, then the wards got changed a bit and you ended up as a Hadfield councillor, then they got changed again and you ended up being back as a councillor.
Yeah, I lost Gamesley for almost 30 years, but I got it back in the end.
But you were still a regular attender because you were for a long time the Derbyshire County Council Cabinet Member for Education, and sort of we had, still have the sort of the Early Excellence Centre, which at one point was sort of one of the nation's sort of leading centres.
Yeah, I've always been involved and engaged with Gamesley, even though I wasn't always a member for that, because I recognised that the issues that Gamesley faces are much more difficult than in many other places. There's the transport, there's the relative deprivation of many of the people who live there, there's an ageing population, and it always had to be an area which we prioritised across Derbyshire, before perhaps some of the areas I represented.
In terms of sort of your involvement over the years in Gamesley, I suspect you'll have been to many different events and sort of different activities. Do you have sort of any particular special memories of your time sort of working on Gamesley?
I think that there was a time when Pat Jav's job in Gamesley was threatened, and within 2 days we managed to get 1,500 signatures saying "Save Pat," and I was able to take that to the County Council, which was then Conservative controlled, and was able to convince the Chair of the County Council to accept the petition, and then the Cabinet Member for Education to actually sustain Pat's job for a couple of years, and then when we took over again, we sustained it for another 6 years. So it's been worth saving, and Pat's contribution during that period and the help I've been able to give her and the help she's been able to give to the community has been fantastic.
Now, in terms of Gamesley, do you have sort of a particular special place that you like to go to in the Gamesley area?
It's quite a joy to ride round the ring road, not boy racing or anything like that, but when you're going round the ring road in Gamesley, you get all these aspects of Glossopdale and the High Peak and Derbyshire and all those sort of things. So I think it's a wonderful place for its location, but it's mostly its people, and that's my fondest memory, the people who live in Gamesley.
In terms of sort of the time that you've been involved from sort of the early 70s, you said, to sort of, essentially today, have you noticed much of a change in terms of sort of Gamesley and the people there?
Yeah, well, there's a change that always happens in Gamesley, and I always highlight it. That is, when the schools are open and the services are open, the car park in Gamesley is full. When they're closing the school holidays, the car park's nearly empty. What's happening is that Gamesley people are getting jobs in those places, but subsequently they're moving. And you have that constant process where people move on, and sometimes you don't feel you're achieving anything, but they're moving on. It's an achievement, and some other people come in and they get the jobs and they move. So it's a constant renewal. But if you look at the coal statistics, it looks as though you've got nowhere over a long period of time. In fact, you've gone a long way. And you just have to keep remembering that.
Then our last question that sort of everyone we've interviewed has been asked, sort of folk, when they first came up from Manchester, sort of they see themselves as Mancunians. From your perspective, do you see folk now as sort of Mancunians, Glossopians or Gamesleyans?
I think they're probably Gamesleyans now. I would wish sometimes that they were Glossopians, or particularly the other way around, that people from Glossop actually went to Gamesley, just not read about it and had prejudicial views about it. I don't know. I think their families were Mancunians, but many of the people who live there now are Gamesleyans.